to Leaders in Action. I'm Robin Termingham of the Olderhood Group, and my guests today are Olderhood CEO Bill Story and well-known international football commentator Derek Ray. Today, we're chatting about the effect of the pandemic on sports organizations and the media. And this is part 2 of our discussion. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hi. Thank you very much.
So let's just jump straight in here. I mean, at the end of the day, professional sports is all about revenue. And I would expect revenue has to be way down for most clubs. What's the impact of all of this?
The impact financially is huge and on an unprecedented scale, but I dare say that applies to all businesses and all industries. But I think what's interesting when you talk about football is it can be different according to the level of football that we're discussing. So that when it comes to the highest level of football, and I'll give you an example, I work in Germany a lot in the Bundesliga, the revenue comes to a large extent from TV. It also comes, of course, from crowds. Now, if you were to compare and contrast that with England, it would be even more reliant on TV than it would be on crowds, just given the way the TV deals are structured. So the first thing that was important during the pandemic in Germany was to get games back because, frankly, there was a TV contract that had to be fulfilled. And so Germany, because of their relative success is the wrong word, but their relative ability to control the initial phase of the pandemic compared to most other Western countries, found itself in a position of being able to bring the Bundesliga back in May before any other league. And obviously the TV component is important, but we're talking about games with no fans. They call them Geisterspiele. It's a great word in German, ghost games, literally, and it does sort of sum up the ghostly atmosphere with just the echoes and the shouts of the players. But then when you go down the football pyramid, if you like, if you go down to the lower divisions, and this could apply to any country, it actually could also apply to the top divisions in smaller countries. When you get to that, then you're looking at less reliance on TV revenue and more on fans paying at the gates, fans buying their tickets. And that is, I think, where a lot of the concern is, because, you know, you can have your TV deals, but in certain countries, in certain leagues, without fans, without that week-to-week revenue, then it becomes very difficult.
Yeah, I think even things like the Italian league, Serie A,
Yep.
You watch games on television, whether it's Juve or Inter or Roma, whatever sort of thing. And it's surprising, I mean, this is pre-pandemic, it's surprising the number of lack of fans, so to speak, within Serie A. That they don't come out in their trillions as they would do in the likes of the UK or whatever sort of thing, and that is very much a television game in Serie A. The Primera Liga in Spain, I think, is a little bit different, certainly for the bigger clubs, Barca and Real, etc. But you're right, I think as it comes down the leagues sort of thing, clearly the television revenue is going to have to boost or fill the gap.
I think we get to the sort of the ethical question too about what big time football should be doing to support smaller scale football. What is the social responsibility? If you are, one of the top clubs in the world and you have all these revenues going back over a number of years and you are spending what many would regard as silly money on footballers, and you are able to withstand the pandemic, knowing that the TV money is still coming in, okay, you don't have the crowd revenue. Do you have a responsibility to prop up teams further down, or is it just survival of the fittest? Is that where we're going with this? And I think there is going to be a reckoning, undoubtedly, in the months ahead. The UK government has made an announcement that fans will not be allowed back inside venues in the UK anytime soon. So it's a different picture there. And there is certainly going to be an impact on, as I would see it, the smaller clubs, many of whom have been around for more than a century.
Yeah.
Well, this is making me want to ask a question, because in a very odd way, churches in our country have faced the same problem, and they've been having virtual services regardless of the religion, and the people who would normally go to church are sending in their little donations.
Yeah.
I'm wondering whether smaller teams are really going to have to look more seriously at how to put their game online and develop a virtual fan base that way.
Another really good question. I know this has happened with some of the smaller clubs, or is happening. There certainly are plans in place to do things like that. I have an association with a very small club that's, I won't bore you with this, but it's technically a Scottish club, although they're actually in England, just a couple of miles over the border, a club called Berwick Rangers. And I do some work as an international ambassador for them. They're a small club. They are a bit of an oddity in terms of their geography. But, they are looking at ways of doing things like that, of being able to stream games, for example. So you have a virtual cup competition that sees, teams play each other online, and you can do things like, pay your admission money. You can put your own donation in. But it's difficult, isn't it? Because it's not the traditional way that football fans contribute to try to help a team keep going.
Yeah, we did. Falkirk Football Club did the same thing, which is sort of my hometown club, and I've got family in Falkirk, and every Saturday at game time, they put obviously an old game, but so you kind of knew what the result was, but it was great, and the fans would pay raffle money and stuff like that. From a commentator point of view, though, Derek, just for a couple of minutes. If you're in the stadium, you, the commentator, have got the atmosphere as well. But if you're actually in the stadium and there are no fans, does that impact? I mean, it doesn't impact your professional capability. I don't mean it in that sense.
No, but
you're not, you're not getting the buzz in the atmosphere either as a commentator.
No, and I honestly think it's a very difficult job for a commentator, and I don't mind sharing the fact that I actually dread doing games with no fans, because we have to change our technique. We rely so much as commentators on the oohs and ahs of the crowd. We sort of intuitively know, and you intuitively know when the ooh is coming and when the swell is coming, and it's all part of the beauty of our sport. But when you don't have that, you have to work a lot harder. You actually have to, I'm not going to say change your voice, but you have to work with a very different set of dynamics, and probably not something that most fans think about. But you do realize it does bring home to you just how important fans are to the overall package of making our sport attractive to the wider world.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is yet another example of an industry where people are going to have to really work together in new ways in order to solve a problem like this.
I think that's right. I think it's going to take cooperation and collaboration by everyone. And, I think as fans, and I try to do this, we think a little bit about how we can help in a different way. And I mentioned virtual tickets and things like that. If the football club means a lot to you, then, maybe go and buy a bit more on the club shop if you can. And, the season ticket aspect is quite interesting, because a lot of people suspected that maybe season ticket sales would be down, but a lot of fans during the initial phase of the pandemic went the opposite and said, no, I will buy my season ticket, even though it means that there's a risk of not seeing every game. There might be games that are postponed. We don't know what the future holds. So I think, football fans are resilient. I think they are a bit annoyed at the moment, because obviously they can't do what they normally want to do. But, that is life generally. That's not just football fans. That's, everybody in society is having to go through this in one way or another.
Cool.
Well, it's been wonderful to chat with you, Derek. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on our show. We're just about out of time. You've been watching Leaders in Action. If you have a question or would like to suggest a topic for this series, you can email us at bill@olderhood.com. That's BILL@olderhood.com. And we look forward to chatting with you again soon. Take care, everyone.